My name is PK and I am president of a group called MATTRS. It stands for Motorcycle Awareness and Training for Traffic and Rider Safety. And what we're doing today is we're here at Cycle Gear on Decatur demonstrating and talking about cold weather riding, how to handle the cold and how to ride in adverse or cold conditions. For those of you that can ride in the wintertime, some people can't, some people depending on where they live at, it's not feasible because of road conditions. But for those of you that can, that have the option of riding in the wintertime, we're going to talk about how to do that and how to do that effectively. And also we're going to discuss the challenges that are involved in riding in the wintertime. We'll talk about cold weather injuries and that kind of stuff, and everything from base layers to liners to ultimately to heated gear, and how to apply those and use those correctly for the situations that you may encounter or deal with. So what we're going to start off with to begin with is we're going to discuss, hang on one second here. Okay, what we're going to discuss is cold weather and riding in cold weather. One of the things to take into account is a lot of people forget about a little thing that most people from back east know about. It's called wind chill factor and how that comes into play as far as temperature. So for the most part, if you want to do a little math, it's roughly wind chill factor. You can factor in about 10 to 15 degrees colder than the ambient temperature when you're riding at speed. So what does that equate to? If it's like this morning in Las Vegas, it was 44 degrees when I was out riding, and so that would equate to about 34 degrees with the wind chill factor. So here's where base layers and getting ready for cold weather come into play. The whole idea behind staying warm and surviving cold weather is to reduce heat loss. And what happens is your body's going to try to compensate for the lack of heat. Okay, so if it's colder than your body core temperature, which is roughly 98.6 degrees, you can suffer from cold weather injuries. Believe it or not, as high as 90 degrees, you can suffer from hypothermia after exposure. So you want to try to maintain that body heat, and that's the goal for cold weather riding. So in order to do that, what we offer things like base layers. So right here, we have a base layer that Cycle Gear carries called warmer gear, and this is more of what I would consider a liner. When it comes to true base layers, those fall in lines of thermals. They have different types of leggings, Under Armour, wicking wear, stuff like that. But the idea behind it is to create a layer to hold in your heat, hold in the body heat, and keep that encased so that when the cold air comes in, it's hitting that and not your direct skin, so you're not losing heat directly from your skin. So with that, what happens is you put that base layer on, and that liner holds in your basic body heat. From there, that's when you go into a liner like warmer or thermals or stuff like that. The nice thing about this newer stuff, the thermal stuff, is it's designed to increase the amount of heat that your body can hold in without all the excess thickness. So the big thing that we don't want with all this gear is we don't want to have what I call the Christmas story incident, where you end up putting on so much gear that you walk out of the house like this, and then you're going to try to bend your arms and reach down and grab your handlebars and your grips, and your fingers are so fat that you can't grab anything. And no, the whole idea behind this is to make it safer for you and make you comfortable so you can function. So this stuff is all designed, it's a lot thinner than the stuff we had back in the day, so you can layer up and stay warm. So we have jacket liners. We also have pants, which I don't have the pants here, but the other thing that people forget about too is your head. Granted, you have your helmet on, but your helmet doesn't necessarily lock out the wind or lock in your heat. So we have things like this, like a balaclava, or as one of my friends likes to call it, baklava. But anyhow, the balaclava is a hood that also is made with that new liner that actually keeps the heat in as well. Then you also have liners for your gloves. Now, A lot of people don't understand the concept behind keeping your hands warm. A lot of people also think, oh, well, I've got heated grips. I put heated grips on and that's going to keep me warm. Here's the catch. If you think about it, we talked about wind chill factor. The bottom of your hands are not necessarily getting hit by the wind at speed. Top of your hands are. So a heated grip may warm the bottom of your hands, but the top where the wind's hitting in is still getting exposed. So anything you can do, again, we want to create a barrier to keep the heat in and keep cold out. So that's where these liners come into play, and they seal you up, keep the cold out, keep the heat in. So that's one of the big ones that I've always said. It's almost like you can be standing in a warm room, but you put your hands in ice water, how are you going to feel? You're going to feel cold. And that's kind of the idea behind gloves, behind keeping your hands warm, etc. So again, you need to worry about staying warm, so on and so forth. Now, we're going to branch over into what to look for and how to tell whether or not you're in what we call cold weather distress. Cold weather distress is when you've lost enough heat, or the temperature's out is cold enough that it's drawn enough heat out of you, and now your body is in distress. And there's different levels of distress, cold weather distress. You have frostbite. Actually, if you think about it, first of all, you have frost nip, then you have frostbite, and then you go into hypothermia. Now that first one, frost nip, is something that a lot of people aren't aware of. Frost nip is when you've been exposed to temperatures long enough that you start getting that funny tingling feeling in your fingertips, or you have a little bit of loss of feeling because of the cold weather. Frost nip is not necessarily permanent. It can recur, but it's not as debilitating as frostbite can be. Frostbite is the next level up. That's when you've had enough exposure that your body can't recoup and can't produce enough heat to thaw the area back out, and you have to use external heat to do that. And then usually at that point there is some type of loss of mobility, loss of sensation, so on and so forth. Then you get into hypothermia. Hypothermia is when you've gone to such a heat deficit that the area cannot be rewarmed by normal measures, and you have to take extreme measures. In hypothermia, that's when the appendages may start turning black. You lose circulation, the blood starts to freeze, and you get tissue damage. That's the big thing, is any type of cold injury that you receive usually equates into some type of tissue damage. Frost nip is very minor. Frostbite's the next level where there is some tissue damage, and hypothermia is where you definitely have tissue damage. One of the things, the myths that people have is as far as what to do if you suffer from any of these cold weather injuries. Contrary to popular belief, a warm cup of coffee is not the solution. Hot chocolate is not the solution. Smoking a cigarette. All these things are what we call venous constrictors. Your problem is your blood's gotten cold, thickened up, and you have circulation issues. Your blood's not getting where it needs to go. So you want to open those vessels up and allow blood to flow again and pump warm blood back through your body. The problem with these items, caffeine and nicotine, are both what we call venous constrictors. So they're going to tighten everything up and decrease your circulation. In doing that, it furthers the problem. So, not a good idea. Warm water? Yeah. Get out of the cold. Try to warm yourself up. They make hot packs, heat warmers, all this other stuff that you can use. But here's the key: if it gets to the point where you have completely lost feeling, etc., or if you start to see your skin turning grayish, etc., do not apply anything moist. Okay? Because the problem you have is once the tissue gets damaged, you can start rubbing, and that's the other thing, is rubbing your hands and stuff to warm them up. If you get to the point where you're at frostbite or above, you can actually peel the skin off and damage the skin. So these are all things that you don't want to do. What is a good idea is, like I said, get out of the element, try to warm your hands up. You can use the heaters, like the hand dryers, that kind of stuff. Other things, other ways. Put your hands in, somewhere that's warm. If you have heated grips, use them to warm your hands, etc. Use other measures, but warm yourself up. One of the big things, however, is if you are on a long trip and you've already started to suffer from these injuries, What you don't want to do is do not warm an area that is going to be subject to being put back out in the cold again. It's better to hold on and do the best you can to try to diminish the amount of heat loss you have. Don't try to rewarm if you're going back out in the cold again, because the problem is you try to warm it up, your body's not trying to produce as much heat now, and then all of a sudden you hit the cold, you're going to progress even further into the range of hypothermia or frostbite and hypothermia. So that's the other big key. Now, we've talked about how to what the signs are, how to deal with it, so on and so forth. Here's how we eliminate it completely. This is heated gear. A lot of guys, I don't need heated gear. I don't need this. I've had a lot of people tell me that. I don't need the heated gear. I'm perfectly fine. I can deal with it, so on and so forth. I'll tell you right now, for as long as I've been riding, as soon as I put on my first set of heated gloves, I wanted to kick myself, because the amount of time that I had suffered with my freezing hands, trying to find gloves that were big enough for me to put a liner in and still have the ability to use my controls and all this other stuff. Such a pain in the butt. Don't have to worry about that anymore. Not with this stuff. So here's the key to heated gear, and people get this mixed up. Number one, heated gear is not designed to heat you up. Okay? What you want to utilize it for is you want to utilize it to eliminate and diminish the amount of heat your body loses. Create a heat shield. You can't beat Mother Nature. Your body's not going to warm up enough in 50-degree weather to where you're going to maintain 98.6 degrees on your core temperature. The exposure's there. Mother Nature wins. She's bigger. She's going to keep